Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hey, good evening and welcome to a wonderful interview tonight. I am so excited to be speaking with Brian Sluga. And Brian, thank you for joining me.
No, it's welcome. Thank you. Glad to be here.
I really want to talk with you about your poetry because we have several poets that we've spoken to, but you're a very, very different kind of poet. And I'd like you to explain that because I think it's amazing.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest and I went to university. I grew up in Central Illinois and I always was into writing and reading and going to the library and short stories. I wrote for the local newspaper and got a corporate job and been married 8.5 years. And shortly after we're married, we got transferred to the UK. And then I got to travel in Europe a lot to a lot of museums and cathedrals, and was in one museum and saw some poetry by Picasso. And I know he had written poetry, but I didn't know a lot about it. But some of his words really got me. One of them was, he had said, everything you can imagine is real. And also, learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. So it kind of made me think, wow, that's some pretty inspirational writing. And so I started entering contests online and joined a local, after we repatriated to Houston, joined some local groups, writing groups. And somebody had mentioned during one group, after I had written several pieces, I had wanted to do an open mic. And somebody had said, oh, well, where's your book that I can buy? And I was like, book I can buy? I don't know anything about this. So one thing led to another, and I got, kind of with some groups of other poets and people that write in Houston, and some of them had self-published on Amazon. So I thought, well, I'll give it a whirl. And so that kind of got me where I'm at.
So I think that's fascinating. One of the things about your poetry that I find so interesting is you have found a way to enter not just a few poetry contests a year, but over 100 contests a year. And I think that's remarkable because you're putting yourself out there in an amazing way.
Yeah. About 3 years ago, I thought, if I can enter 50 a year, besides working, I do have a day job like most people too, but
right.
I thought, might be. So one of the people that in the writing group that I belong to, she said, a good writer, whether it's short stories, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, should enter over 100 contests a year because the rate of acceptance is so low. And I was like, okay. So the first 10 or 20 that are rejected, sometimes it's worse than a job rejection, because you're like, I really thought my writing, my words, bled on the paper, and come to find out that not everybody likes the same genre. And some magazines and journals are very picky. You could be 20 words over what they're looking for or 20 words under. It's really, it's a real niche market. So yeah, last year was like 123 I entered. And you can enter, a lot of them are free, some of them are $5, $8, $10, but there's a lot of free runs out there. And there's some, you can get picked up, and then the ones you think you would get, you don't. So it's you put yourself out there. I guess it's like people that are painters or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to go to these shows all around the country in the summer. And some people, sometimes they're going to sell a lot, and then sometimes they might not sell enough to pay for their mileage and their gas to the next event. So
There you go.
yeah.
So do you have a favorite theme that you try to focus on for your poetry?
Well, my first book, I named it, I wanted to be not different, but I wanted to really lash out at people. It's called Not Just My Poetry, It's Your Life Too. Meaning, hey, give this book a chance, because it's not just something about me, but it could be, it could strike a chord with you. So mainly my first book, a lot of the poems are about things in my life, maybe true, untrue, but some are made up completely.
Okay.
Some are like love, and it wasn't true. I've had people ask me at readings and open mics, boy, she must have been special or whatever, and I go, no, she's totally fictitious. So that's the beauty of writing poetry and prose, is it's not always true. I mean, it could be totally made up, and the audience really believes that, boy, that really happened, or that really is a true story.
So when you tell folks that one of your poems is not really based on fact, are they disappointed?
No, sometimes, but most of the time they want to know, how could I come up with a story? How could I develop a character, or come up with, that?
Mm-hmm.
And just totally randomly. I was just in Waco this last weekend, and I was accepted in their anthology, their Word Fest. It was their big weekend, and so at the open mic, I read, and then I read one that was accepted in the book, and somebody had asked me the same thing. Kind of, they had said, well, what inspires you to write like a chapter or something in your next book? And because my wife and I travel so much for pleasure for me, but for her for work, I tend to write in other countries, seeing other people, other languages, cathedrals, museums, music, hear music out. And it inspires me because I see a different atmosphere completely than what you're used to here in America. And it really, it gets the juices flowing, I guess, kind of like a John Grisham or something that creates a character for his next book. I just go on, and maybe I'll have 5 or 6 poems written in a week, just from one trip, or being in an airport for delayed is many, if you travel much like we do, delayed is is kind of like, if the sun comes out tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
It could be delayed an hour, then next thing you know, it's 4 hours, and you're sitting in a restaurant having a glass of wine and talking to complete strangers, and the next thing you know, I'm on my phone typing in 4 or 5 stanzas, and then from there it grows.
Well, more power too, that you can type something into your phone and have it meaningful. I have luck. But to be inspired by your surroundings, wherever that is, that gives you a huge variety for your imagination. So, just like a fictional character in any other author mode, that's very, very fun. Do you ever take the characters from your poems and continue them like some people do with a story, where they, evolve that character over time or over space? Or do you keep them isolated to one?
No, pretty much isolated. But I can tell you that that's interesting, because in my second book that's complete, actually today I just finalized with my illustrator the book cover. There's several, probably 7 or 8 in there that I could see going on into a maybe another book completely. So my second book is it's called From Now to the End of Time.
And time out, Brian. That's a perfect place for us to take a pause. We're going to listen to our sponsor messages now and come back, and we're going to talk about book number 2. So stay tuned.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lecter, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lecter is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielecter.store. Use coupon code VIDEO19. Again, that's indielecter.store, coupon code VIDEO19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow.
Hey, welcome back, and I am enjoying a wonderful conversation with Brian Sluga. He is a poet. His book that was released in November of 2018, Not Just My Poetry, It's Your Life Too. You know, it's a wonderful collection, and it's something that you have had some success with, but now you're going into book 2. And so when we stopped before, you were going to talk about that. So refresh everyone's memory as to the title of that, please.
So I had thought about what I wanted the title to be. So I looked at a lot of different pictures online and everything for the cup to get cover ideas. And I'm using the same illustrator. So I thought from now till the end of time, and I thought I would use pictures, and it would make me creative to write, you know, poetry. So there are some good ones. There is one that I did about the Mona Lisa. There's Lady Liberty on a summer day. There's one about Picasso. And my grandfather was born in Avion, France. And so I did one about him and the French, the whole growing up, you know, with the French grandfather. And so I have some longer prose that, like we had talked earlier, that I see could spawn into possibly me not completely getting out of poetry and prose, but maybe having like one whole book about just about, and you know, Rome, or just about Mona Lisa, or poems about Picasso, or I guess there's all kinds of opportunity there. So
sounds like it. So do you think it would be advantageous to mix poetry and just general prose within the same book and do a focus like on Picasso? I mean, he's like your hero. He told you to learn the rules so you could break them. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say he's necessarily my hero, because he wasn't a good husband, as we well know. But the inspiration of how he wrote his first couple poems, and then how he became the great, you know, painter that he was, has always interested me, as Leonardo da Vinci also interested me too. He was a man that had a vision and is well revered still today. So I think the mixture of smaller poems, a stanza, and a longer, kind of break it up for the reader. Actually, some of the quotes that people had said about my first book is thoughtful and imaginative. Sluga points a poetic picture of his life, love, and experiences. And then another person said, one of the best poetry books I've ever read in my life, 100% recommended. So I have no idea who that was. But people had said things, you know, comments on Amazon and to me at open mics, and it told me, hey, you like those 3 or 4 poems, that same kind of writing that you like. Now, I wouldn't say that I listen to everybody exactly, because everybody likes something different. The big thing today is people want to be they want to be amazed when they write something. They want to be swept up, and then they when they find out it didn't happen, it's a little it's a letdown for a lot of people, which surprises me that people would actually believe that everything I write is the truth. But I guess that's just how sometimes it is, right?
Well, of course, and it can be fact or it can be fiction. It is still your inspiration. So now that you have written like 2 books, are you and I know you enter into poetry contests. Are you going to submit into book contests too? Is that an avenue? Because nothing wrong with submitting a poetry book into a book contest.
Yeah, I've thought of that, but I haven't. Yeah, I haven't done that. That's probably one of the next on this journey that that I will do. Being at some of these events and open mics, everybody has a different, idea. Oh, can you come and read at this, across town on this day? And it's if you're available and something. And I read a few, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. Just got a quick text and email. Hey, could you come and read three of your poems at this, place that there's this band opening up. And so I show up with 3 of my good ones. And there was a friend of mine that's a Ukrainian poet here in town, and she's very, very well versed. And the other 2 guys had poetry that are, one guy had all obscure poetry using very large words that most people didn't understand. And then the other guy had what you would call sex poetry. So I was kind of the star that night. Most people kind of clapped a lot more for mine. I wasn't sure if that was because they liked all 3, but I had read one for my new book. When we lived in the UK, the Game of Thrones is the big talk over there, and it's still the big thing. And so about a year ago, I played around with doing a long prose on a dragon and a knight, and it created into a dragon I call Altor, totally made up. And he fights this knight, and it's I've read it now 2 or 3 times at some open mics, and I had probably 10 or 15 people come up to me and say, where did you come up with that? I said, I haven't seen one episode of Game of Thrones. I listened to what everybody over there had told me, and I've read a lot about dragons and folklore, and I just wrote it. So it's going to be one of the big key ones in my new book. So look for that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned this a couple of times. So for those listeners that are out there that are poets or aspiring writers, how do you come across the open mic options that you mentioned? I know you're in Houston. Is that because I'm up in Dallas and I haven't heard of those? So how do you get into that?
So I'm sure Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, I'm sure all those large cities all have a club writing group. You just need to, Google it or find out where they meet every week or every month. And there are venues, there's, sports bars, little coffee places that to attract, an audience. People will come and they'll drink beer and they'll drink coffee and cappuccino. They'll hear a warm-up guy playing guitar, and then people will read poetry. And then once you get your name kind of known, you get put on a list. That's how I'm on a list here. I'm not like that high on the list like some people that speak all over the city, but and there are a lot of slams, which I'm not a slam poet. I'm not a angry. I'm not. I don't write depressing, angry poetry that's kind of like rap poetry to me. They
Oh,
call
I
it,
see.
they call it,
Mhm.
yeah, they call it slam poetry. That's a big thing here in Houston. So I don't, because that's just not my thing. It's like a cowboy going into a metal bar, you know. You
Right.
just, yeah, you don't want to do that. So that's what I do. Is I at all these different events, I pick up open mic things, and I did a couple years ago, and I'd send an email that I'm an author from Houston and blah blah blah, and the next thing you know, you're getting emails on a regular basis that says, hey, we need a poet. Can you come and read 2 or 3 of your latest poems or your poems? So.
No, that's really cool. So I know that in not just my poetry, it's your life too. I mean, those are very sweet poems. They're very open and inspiring and fun, and they're certainly not depressing. Is that true in the next book as well?
I wouldn't like. There's some like love-hate relationships. There's a little. There isn't anything depressing or anything, but it's
Right.
Love doesn't always work out, and then again, it's not always true. So I would say that there are, when I got there to see the Mona Lisa, the picture is like the size of a.
It's tiny.
Yeah. And I was so excited. And then when I saw how small it is, and then when I saw how many people were there, like literally hundreds of people pushing their way to try to take a picture, it told me that that he had a vision. And that's true, that prose about Mona. And there's also one that I love Italian food. My mother's parents came over from Italy, from Sicily and from Torino. So I did one. There's one about Mulberry Street, if you know Mulberry Street in New York. Lily is basically, yeah. So there's a long one, prose on Lily, and it gives my little spin on it.
All right. So what we're going to do, Brian, is we're up for another break. This is going so fast. I hate it when time moves so quickly. But we're going to take a break and come back, and I want to talk about where you're going to be seen and how people can reach out to you. So stay tuned.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? I'm Charlotte Kenyon, award-winning author of the book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. That was a question I had to ask myself some 16 years ago, and you'll have to ask the same question. I had a father-in-law with dementia, a mother with Alzheimer's, and a dad with Parkinson, all at the same time.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. We are in the final segment with Brian Sluga. I am just having so much fun learning about poetry and open mic and book number 2. So, Brian, where can people see you? I know that you're going to be at some events. So where can they see you? And if you have your book handy and could hold it up, that would be great as well. Oh, it's not in front of your face. There you go.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, I went on Fiverr, and I found a gal that's an illustrator, and she did this. This is my cousin's playing when we were kids, and she's doing my second book. So definitely look for that. And so I just was at Waco. And in July, I'm confirmed to read and be a participant at the Houston Public Library's inaugural Indie Author Showcase, December 7th and 8th here in Houston. So I know those things for sure. That's and just trying to get this second book off the ground. And you're going to be a greeter, aren't you going to be a greeter? Yeah. Anyone going to the Austin, Texas? It's Texas Festival, is that?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to be from 9 to 11 on Saturday. I'm going to be at the welcome tent or welcome table. So
the Texas Book Festival, and you're going to be there from, I'm sorry, what time?
From 9 a.m. to 11.
Okay, 9 a.m. to 11.
Yeah, and then I'll be
the book, right?
I'll be wandering around after that, meeting the other authors, and hopefully learning from their books and picking up a couple little tidbits. You know.
Now I know that you're a member of a couple of different author groups. So which ones do you find are beneficial?
The largest, and you have to pay every month, but you can go on and look. The largest online poetry is allpoetry.com. And if you go on there and look up Go Run One, and you can see 120 of my poems.
Nice.
So not all my best, but there's quite a few, and there's a lot of contests on there. And then I would say that's about. I mean, there's poets and authors. They have a lot of different websites you can go to enter contests, and Submittable is another one, but that's mainly.
Okay, so your website is really the allpoetry.com that you were just mentioning. That's
where all my poems, or 120 or 122 of my poems are. And that's where you would get to, if you'd go to allpoetry.com and look up Go Run One, search, that's all my stuff. And then I am on Instagram under Go Run 5, because I used to be a runner before I tore my knee, and then 5 was my high school number. So on Instagram, I have some of my shorter poetry, and then I just post every day, like the National Day and different things to think about, maybe different authors' birthdays and different things. And then
you're on Twitter.
And then on Twitter at Brian Sluga, and that's mainly just a montage of things. I follow mainly poets on there and authors, Texas, UK, Canada. There's a lot of authors that follow me on Instagram from Canada and the UK. So they must, and I ask them all the time, how, you know, what about my things that you like? Because I'll tell you what I like about, you know, your things. So
there you go.
I'm also
Brian,
on.
I'm so sorry, but we have really run out of time. I hope we get to have another session, and people can see you in Austin coming up soon, in October 26th and 27th, and then in December in Houston. And thank you so much, Brian, for joining me.
Great. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.